Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Julia Kim. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on the show this week, a prison break in Israel that's led to a massive manhunt. Among the 6 prisoners who tunneled their way out, influential Palestinian figure Zakaria Zubeidi. Building the wall amid growing numbers of Afghan refugees, Turkey reinforces its border with Iran to block the entry of Afghans fleeing the Taliban. And many Afghans who have managed to escape are currently in limbo in Qatar, anxious and uncertain about where they'll be sent to next. But let's start in Israel, where a manhunt is currently underway for 6 Palestinian prisoners who made their way out of a high-security jail. The 6 men shared a cell where they dug a tunnel over the course of a month using a rusty spoon. Police believe they may have escaped to Jenin in the occupied West Bank, the hometown of one of the prisoners, a top former militant leader, Zakaria Zubeidi. Ellen Gainsford tells us more about him.
He's the subject of a manhunt by the Israeli security forces. Zakaria Zubeidi was the former head of the Jenin branch of the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade. He had been serving time in a high-security facility when he and 5 other prisoners escaped via a tunnel in a dramatic jailbreak. His brother claims to have had no idea what he was planning.
I was with him in the same cell. I never felt that something was up or anything was different in the ward. I didn't know that my brother was planning to escape. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary.
Born in the town of Jenin in the occupied West Bank, as a child, Zubeidi was part of a theatre troupe run by an Israeli human rights activist. But as a teenager, he was arrested for participating in the first Palestinian Intifada, later rising to prominence as a militant during the second Intifada from 2000 to 2005. A close ally of deceased Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat, he was celebrated as a hero for his anti-Israeli attacks.
Whoever condemns these martyrdom operations should come to our cities and villages to stop the Zionist enemy from invading them and killing our sons. Other than that, they should shut up, keep quiet, or step aside.
In 2007, he agreed to lay down his arms as part of an amnesty deal with Israeli authorities and went on to found his own theatre group in the Jenin refugee camp, but was arrested in 2019 and jailed over fresh terror allegations. Following his escape from prison, hundreds of Islamic Jihad supporters rallied in Gaza, and militants released incendiary balloons into Israel, prompting retaliatory airstrikes from Israeli warplanes.
Moving on to Lod now, about 25 kilometers south of Tel Aviv. Back in May, renewed conflict between Israel and Hamas ignited Arab and Jewish mob violence there. Residents of Lod, who'd prided themselves on amicable community relations, were left in shock. Now, 2 Israeli men were killed, 1 Arab and 1 Jew. Today, some in the city are trying to heal through meaningful dialogue.
2 men united in their grief. Both lost relatives during May's unrest in the city of Lod. Jewish Israeli Efi Yehosha is in mourning for his brother, who died after stones were thrown at his car. While Malik Hasuna, who is Arab Israeli, lost his 31-year-old son, Musa, who was shot by Jewish vigilantes. They found comfort in each other.
I told Effie that I am ready to offer him any help. My name is Malik Hasuna. I am the one whose son was killed, and your pain is mine. There is no difference for me between Yigal and Musa.
But their experiences of the Israeli justice system have been very different. 7 Arab suspects have been indicted in Yigal's killing, while 4 Jewish suspects were arrested following Musa's murder, but then released, with no indictments filed.
I want to know. They imprisoned about 215 people over Yigal's case, but over Musa's case, none. Why?
Both men are residents of Lod, a working-class Israeli city of around 80,000 people. About a third of the population is Arab-Israeli, and the Jewish and Arab communities have long lived side by side without trouble. But in May, the peace was shattered, triggered by tensions over the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem.
I've become a better man since we met. What does that mean? It's given me a lot more than I thought. It's a form of connection for me, and for other people who can see our relationship. It gives me strength to tell them, if I can be with him and all his pain, and I don't let go, it's a good message for all, not to hate.
While the pair wait for justice for their loved ones, they're able to find solace in each other.
Well, fearing a new refugee crisis, Turkey is beefing up its border wall with Iran to block Afghan refugees from entering the country. Scores of civilians fleeing the Taliban regime are escaping to Iran, from where they make the weeks-long journey to the Turkish border. President Erdogan says 300,000 Afghans have already arrived, and he's determined not to let any more in. From Van, on the Turkish-Iranian border, Shona Bhattacharyya, Ludovic and Hussein Asad report.
The concrete wall snakes through the mountains. On these rocky roads, patrols are stepping up to protect the border. 500 kilometers separate Turkey from Iran. This wall is 150 kilometers long, and Ankara wants to build another 50 by the end of the year. Wearing helmets and carrying guns, these policemen pose before cameras that have been invited to film this border post. Turkey wants the world to know it will let no one through, despite the non-cooperation of Iranian authorities. The EU will not be able to count on Ankara to send back Afghan migrants who somehow make it to Europe. But Turkey also wants to send a message to its own citizens, who fear another wave of refugees so soon after the massive arrival of Syrians in the country.
As a Muslim nation, we must do everything in our power, but there are already many Afghans and especially a lot of Syrians who have come here. Our youth is unemployed, and finding work is getting even harder, ever since the economy has gotten worse.
I believe our country has already welcomed enough Afghan refugees. From now on, European or Middle Eastern countries should be the ones to take them in.
These are the men and women Turks do not want on their soil. Van's detention center is one of 25 of its kind in Turkey. It was built in 2017 after the agreement on migration passed with the European Union. Other centers are being built as we speak.
We haven't reached full capacity yet. As you know, the discussions with Afghanistan are ongoing, and when the government is set up, we will restart the repatriations.
Going back to Afghanistan is the worst-case scenario for this mother.
If we go back, we'll be in the hands of the Taliban.
This family arrived August 15th, the day Kabul was taken back by the Taliban. Like the others held between these walls, they are fleeing poverty, fighting, and the lashes of the new masters of Afghanistan.
If we go back, we'll be killed. It's 100% certain, because we're Shiites.
Since the Taliban entered the Afghan capital, an increasing number of civilians are walking through Iran. The crossing takes a month. Even as Turkey reports a fall in the number of migrants arriving compared to this time last year, a fresh wave is expected in the next few days.
Now, many Afghan refugees lucky enough to get on a flight out of Afghanistan have found themselves in Qatar. The small Gulf nation has played a vital role in the United States' evacuation from Kabul. Thousands of refugees and service people have passed through Qatar and transferred to different destinations. But others, like the journalist Ahmad Wali Sahadi, are still in transit in the capital, Doha. Fraser Jackson has more.
2,000 kilometers from his home in Kabul, journalist Ahmad and refugees like him find themselves in transit in Doha. Despite having escaped from Afghanistan, the situation in his home country is never far from his mind.
Physically, I'm here in Qatar, in Doha, but mentally, I'm in Afghanistan with my family, and I'm worried about my family. I am afraid that something will happen to them, and I just scared to cry. I gotta get emotional.
Like many other refugees, Ahmad is being housed in the brand new accommodation that will be used during the 2022 World Cup. FIFA's president has been to meet the refugees, but although they're in Qatar now, their future remains uncertain.
Nobody cares about us. Only Qataris are just taking care about us. They are feeding us. They have given us a home. They have given everything, but there is no destination. I don't know who is going to accept as a refugee.
Since the start of the Afghan crisis, Qatar has been active on all fronts, whether diplomatic, political, or humanitarian. Little by little, this extremely rich Gulf country is trying to establish itself on the international scene as a key player in the region.
Well, that's it for this edition of Middle East Matters. Stay tuned for the latest world news updates after this.
Daniel Pseni, vous avez été victime vous-même lors des attentats du 13 novembre 2015 au Bataclan. Et c'est vous qui avez d'ailleurs filmé la fuite des spectateurs du Bataclan.
Je suis tétanisé. Je suis debout, immobile, je ne sais pas ce qui se passe. Je suis un morceau de bois à ce moment-là.
On sent que la réflexion se focalise que sur une chose, aider ceux qui souffrent.
2201, a thought-provoking must-see documentary on France 24 and France24.com.